week's story is called Honor the King. Now, we're going to start with our Bible verse. That's a bit weird, isn't it? Honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the King. It says in 1 Peter 2:17. Now, it's what we learned last week about our new Bible verse, but our Bible verse says we ought to honor the King. But what if the King is being mean? That's our question this week. What if the King is being mean? That's a little girl. She's going, I don't know. What are we supposed to do? So David's going to teach us what we're supposed to do if the King is being mean. Because King Saul's being mean to David, isn't he?
Yeah.
King Saul is chasing after David and trying to kill him. But does David still have to honor him? That's our question. So we're going to see. King Saul had gathered up to 3,000 men to chase after David. That's a lot of men, isn't it? Does that sound very fair?
Nope.
No. Not very fair at all. She agrees. Not very fair. King Saul came to the rocks where the wild goats live, and he was looking for David there. He must have heard that he was there. Well, night was coming, and they saw a cave. So King Saul decided to spend the night in the cave. But do you know who else was in the cave? Who else do you think was in the cave?
A bear.
It wasn't a bear. No, not a bear. It was David and his men. They were also in the cave. Now, when they heard King Saul coming, they all hid in the sides of the cave. Can you see the other parts of the cave, James? There's more than one part. See all the other parts? They hid in the other sides of the cave. Now, this isn't the cave they hid in, but this is a cave where you can see that there are other spots where David and his men could hide. David and his men were hiding in the other parts of the cave. But shh, nobody better sneeze and nobody better breathe too loud or King Saul would hear you. You can hear a lot in a cave. Sound goes really far. They'd had to have been really quiet. Well, King Saul and his men all went to sleep. And one of David's friends said, David, look, it's your enemy. God has given him right into your hands. I mean, he's right there. He's asleep. You ought to do something to him. Now, this is why I told you couldn't push a chair in, James. Look. You spell it O-B-E-D-I-E-N-C-E. Obedience is the very best way to show that you believe. Now, wait a minute. Should David obey his friends? Should he hurt King Saul?
No.
That's what the next slide said. What do you guys think? And you said, no, he shouldn't hurt King Saul. And that's right, he shouldn't. But let's see what David decided to do. So, not looking very promising. David crept out of the side of the cave and over to King Saul, and he took out his knife. What do you think David's going to do?
Throw it away.
You think he's going to throw away his knife? Anybody over there got an idea what he's going to do? You think he's going to throw it away too? Well, he didn't. He cut off a piece of King Saul's clothes. Took it and cut a piece of his clothes. Sort of like proof. See, I was right next to you. I've got your clothes in my hands. And then David snuck back to his side of the cave. Then David started to feel bad. I shouldn't have done that, David said. I should never have raised my hand against my master and my king. God chose Saul to be king, and I have done wrong. So David stopped his servants from attacking King Saul. He said, no, guys. No. Don't touch them. Now, the next morning, King Saul woke up. Didn't notice he was missing some of his clothes. Packed up all their camp, and they left the cave. And there they were with all their backs to the cave. And who came out after them? Do you know? That's right. David came out of the cave and he said, my Lord the King. Now, isn't he supposed to be hiding from King Saul? But he yelled, my Lord the King. And when King Saul turned around, David bowed himself to the ground. Why do you believe men who lie and say that I want to hurt you? See, look, here in my hands. You were right here in my midst, and I could have hurt you. Turn the page. But I didn't. Some of my men said I ought to kill you, but I spared you because I will not kill the king that God has given Israel. See, look, I have a piece of your clothes in my hand. I got right up close to you, and I cut it off myself, but I didn't kill you. I don't want to hurt you. Now, you might think that King Saul would fly into a rage, because he usually does. But he didn't. Not this time. King Saul started to cry. You are more righteous than I, he said. You have given me good when I tried to do bad by you. You are not my enemy, I see that now, and I know that Israel will be yours one day. You will be king. Now swear that you will not kill my family. Because remember, that's what the new king used to do. The new king used to kill all the old king's family. And King Saul said, please promise you won't do that. Now I'm going to turn the page. And David, as you probably guessed, David promised he would not kill King Saul's family. Because David liked King Saul and he liked Jonathan. Remember? His best friend Jonathan? Back up, James. But it was also the right thing to do. It was the right thing to promise that he wouldn't kill King Saul's family. So King Saul went home. That's a bit different, isn't it? Yeah. Usually King Saul flies into a rage, but King Saul went home.
And throws a spear.
No, he didn't throw a spear this time. No, he went home. So, do you know the answer to our question? Can we dishonor the king if the king is being mean? No, that's right. We cannot dishonor the king if the king is being mean. That doesn't mean you have to obey the king when he tells you to do something wrong. But it does mean that you must always treat him with respect, even if you cannot obey him. That's what Jonathan did when King Saul ordered him to kill David. Jonathan said no, but he still treated his dad respectfully. And David did that in our story too. King Saul was being mean, but David honored him anyway. Now, the young men who went with David were very brave. They were very brave, weren't they? Look at them all being brave. But they wanted David to kill King Saul. And that was wrong. You listening? But David, he was right to not obey the men with him. Do you know who should we obey first? God. Good job. That's right. God. We obey God first. If someone tells you to do something, I want you to stop and think, would God like this? Now we've got a picture of the 10 Commandments. That's some of the things we ought to think about. Now, but I also want you to think about our Bible verse, because our Bible verse tells us lots of things we ought to do. We ought to honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, and honor the king.
Why does it say fear God?
Fear God. It means you're supposed to, fearing, when you fear somebody, you think highly of them, and, well, God can get mad when we do things wrong, doesn't he? He can judge us. But if you're thinking about God and thinking about, I don't want to make God mad, that's what's called fearing God, in a way, because you realize that he's very important and you want to obey him. So you fear God. Because some people don't fear God. They say nasty things about God. They say some horrible things about him. You listening, Jamie?
Yeah.
Okay, listening. It's important. Fearing God is about obeying him and realizing how important God is, because God's pretty strong, isn't he?
Okay.
Okay, that's all right. All righty. If you think, this thing they've asked me to do, it doesn't fear God, and it doesn't honor the brotherhood or loving, and it's not honoring, then you should stop, not obey them. But you still have to be respectful, because remember, the men that was with David, James, they said something that was not wise, but David didn't call them stupid. He didn't call them dumb or idiots. David was respectful, and that is what our Bible verse means. We must treat everyone with respect, even if they are wrong or being mean. Now, how can you show respect to someone? Do you know? What are some respectful things that you can do?
Help them.
You can help. Yep, sorry, what was that over there? Being kind, you can help someone. That's something else that you can do that Blake said. Help someone, being kind. Listening. Respect is listening to what they have to say. Respect is using nice words. And respect is being kind and helping. See, they're helping that guy there, aren't they? To honor someone is to show them respect. Did it? When Jesus hung on the cross, he didn't yell at the soldiers who put him up there, did he? Did he yell at all the soldiers and say, "You were nasty and mean to hang me up on this cross"? Did he say that? No. Well, it was what he wanted, but he was also kind to them. He forgave them even though they hurt him. He forgave them anyway. Because they shouldn't have put him up there. He didn't deserve it. He didn't do anything wrong. And Jesus didn't fly into a rage because all the disciples ran away, because they did. They ran away and left Jesus all alone. And that wasn't very nice. But Jesus didn't get mad at them for running away. He loved the scared disciples anyway. But sometimes it's hard when our friends aren't being nice, or someone else isn't being nice, or maybe our friends get scared and leave us all alone. Sometimes it's hard to be respectful. Jesus treated people with honor and love even if they didn't deserve it. And we should do the same. Now, here's something maybe you know, James. What's the best way to show that you believe? Can you remember? The best way to show that you believe, you're going to need your chair back, James, is to obey. We ready for our song again?
Yeah.
You spell it O-B-E-D-I-E-N-C-E. Obedience is the very best way to show that you believe. Our song tells us the best way to show that you believe is to obey. That means if you do our Bible verse, so we're going to our Bible verse now. If you do the things in our Bible verse, it shows that you really believe it's true. You believe it's right to honor all men if you honor all men. And being loving means that you believe it and you do it. So let's say our Bible verse together. Honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the King. 1 Peter 2:17. We say it again. Honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the King. 1 Peter 2:17. That's it. Yeah, but hang on. We haven't finished our story yet. Now, Jamie, what's the best way to show you believe? Do you remember? To obey. You obey. All right, that's all for this week. Bye.